Alright, everybody, and this is the final part of the Let's Read of Flush. Something very surprising happened. The Coral Queen burned down, and people think that Noah's dad did it. Let's check it out. 21. The detective wouldn't tell us anything more, but Shelley filled us in by phone later. It was a wild story. Dusty Muleman had invited all the local big shots and politicians to the grand reopening of the casino boat. They all showed up, too, since Shelley was pouring free drinks. There were fireworks, a lobster buffet, and calypso music from the Steel Drum Band. The party rocked on until 2 in the morning. Afterward, it took Shelley 45 minutes to clean up the bar, and she was one of the last to leave the boat. The first explosion took place shortly after 3 a.m., and within half an hour, the Coral Queen was on fire from bow to stern. The new watchman, Luna's replacement, was nearly fried when a falling cinder ignited the ticket shed where he was phoning for help. The watchman made a frantic attempt to douse the flames with a dock hose, but it didn't work, and he ran to the marina. By the time the fire engines got there, the gambling boat was a floating torch. By the time Dusty Muleman got there, it had burned to the waterline. 73 feet of smoldering ash and melted poker chips. Naturally, he believed that my father was the culprit. Knowing what Dad thought of Dusty, the sheriff didn't need much convincing. Even Abby felt that the circumstances were suspicious. You think he might have had something to do with this? She asked me in private. Maybe he paid somebody to go burn down that boat. Paid them with what? How about the $1,000 he got from the sanctuary? No way, Abby, I said. Absolutely impossible. But she'd gotten me worried. What if Dad had flipped out again? Blown another gasket? Flown off the handle? So when we were alone, I asked him. I won't tell a soul if you were involved, I said. It was a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. Noah, it wasn't me. I swear on a stack of Bibles. He solemnly raised his right arm, cast and all. It was so intense that it startled me. I had nothing to do with torching the Coral Queen, he said. Please believe me, and please tell Abby to believe me too. And in the end, we did. Because my father never lied to us about something serious. Whenever he screwed up, he would admit it right away. He always took the blame, the responsibility, and the punishment. Why would he change now? Mr. Shine, our lawyer, was at the house when the detective and 2 deputies returned that afternoon with a search warrant. They snooped around for a long time, but they couldn't find anything that connected Dad to the boat arson. Lieutenant Shucker was visibly disappointed. I had to lock you up anyhow, he said to Dad. It's crystal clear what happened. You had the motive, you had the opportunity, you've got no evidence, and you've got no case, said Mr. Shine, looking less mopey than usual. I would kindly advise you to stop bothering my client. Evidence? The detective scoffed. You want evidence? Just look at the brand new cast on his hands. Obviously he burned himself while he was lighting the fire. Dad angrily clawed his plaster paws together. What a load of bull. We'll see about that. I'll be back tomorrow with another warrant, Mr. Underwood, and a doctor to saw off those casts. If your fingers are barbecued, you're going straight to the slammer. What about the fist holes in our doors? Abby protested. That proves he's telling the truth. Nice try, Lieutenant Sugar said sarcastically, but you could do the same thing with a tire iron. Then he stood up to leave. My mother had been sitting on the sofa, not saying a word. I figured that she was just depressed, thinking about Dad returning to jail and how he might never get his captain's license back, or how our quiet, semi-normal life was a total mess again. That's what I was thinking anyway. But it turns out that Mom wasn't depressed at all. She was just waiting for the right moment to drop a little stink bomb on the detective. Here, Lieutenant, she said pleasantly, you might want to take a look at this. She handed a computerized printout to Lieutenant Shucker, who studied it suspiciously. It's the bill from the emergency room. Mom said, Yes, Mrs. Underwood, I can read. For when my husband was admitted for severe injuries to both of his hands. The detective frowned impatiently. So, what's your point? My mother is truly awesome in situations like that. Nothing phases her. She stood beside Lieutenant Shucker and calmly pointed to a line of type on the computer receipt. He was treated for fractures, not burns. It says so right here, Lieutenant. Mom smiled. That was my first point. The detective grunted. My second point, my mom went on, concerns the precise time my husband arrived at the hospital. See, it was 11:33 in the morning. Yesterday morning, Lieutenant. Oh, approximately 16 hours before Mr. Muleman's boat was set on fire. Yes, I can do the math, the detective grumbled, which means my husband couldn't possibly have been the arsonist, Mom said, unless you cared to demonstrate how a person with all 10 fingers sealed in hard plaster could go about striking a match. Lieutenant Shucker's big, round chest seemed to deflate. Mom led him to the front door, the 2 deputies skulking close behind. Goodbye now, she called after them, and good luck solving your case. We waited at the window until they drove away. Then Abby started whooping, and we all slapped high fives. Me, my sister, Mom, Mr. Shine, even Dad with his lumpy 5-pound casts. Donna, that was amazing, he said. Truly amazing. Better than amazing, Abby crowed. It's outrageous. No, incredible, I hollered. Amazingly, outrageously incredible. Okay. Well, even if he couldn't have possibly done it himself, there's still the possibility that he hired somebody else to do it for him. I mean, I know he didn't do it, but hey, we're still kind of jumping to conclusions, aren't we? Mom blushed. We'll see, she said. We'll just have to wait and see. But Lieutenant Shucker never came back. And later, when we learned who actually burned the Coral Queen down, we congratulated my mother all over again. It was Payne's mother, risen from the grave. No, it wasn't. We congratulated my mother all over again. Dusty Muleman had gotten exactly what he deserved, just as she had predicted. Luckily, Dad's anger control counselor took pity on him and didn't mention his broken hands in our letter to the judge. Instead, the counselor stated that Mr. Payne Underwood had made significant, though sometimes painful, progress in managing his temper, and that he presented no immediate threat to himself, his family, or the innocent public. Whether he's still a threat to innocent doors remains to be seen. By coincidence, the Coast Guard sent Dad his captain's license on the same day the fire investigator released their findings about the Coral Queen. The story took up the entire front page of the Island Examiner, including photographs of Dusty Muleman and the burned boat. There was no photo of Jasper Jr., which was a shame since he was the star of the show. Dusty's first mistake had been allowing Jasper Jr. and Bull to hang out aboard the Coral Queen on the night of the grand reopening. Dusty's second mistake had been losing track of those two nitwits while he celebrated. By the time the party had ended, Dusty wasn't thinking too clearly. He staggered from the boat, assuming that his son had already gone home. He was wrong. Jasper Jr. and Bull had decided to throw a party of their own in one of the storage holds. They had snuck off with a handful of Dusty's prized Cuban cigars and a 12-pack of beer that they had swiped from behind Shelley's bar. Unfortunately for them, the place they'd chosen for their smoking experiment was the same one where Dusty Muleman had stored several surplus boxes of fireworks. Being the leader of all things stupid, it was Jasper Jr. who lit the cigar, inhaled deeply, gagged violently, and spit the thing 20 feet across the room, where it landed in an open crate of bottle rockets, which soon began to ignite, one after the other. Yeah, again, remember kids, smoking is not cool. Before long, flames were shooting all over the place. The two party boys were lucky to get out alive. Jasper Jr. was coughing so hard from the cigar that he was useless, so Bull threw him over his shoulder and ran through the smoke and sparks towards the deck. They landed in the water the same instant that the Coral Queen's fuel tank exploded. When questioned a few days later, Jasper Jr. and Bull denied knowing how the fire started. However, arson investigators couldn't help but notice that both kids had scorched eyebrows and singed earlobes. Jasper Jr. wasted no time blaming the boat disaster on his best buddy, the guy who saved his life. At that point, Bull wisely terminated the friendship and offered a detailed statement to the fire department. The fact that his own son had burned down the Coral Queen was not the worst news that Dusty Muleman got that day. The worst news was that the crime scene technicians had found something unusual in the charred rubble of the casino boat. A fireproof, waterproof lockbox that was packed with cash. More than $100,000, according to Miles Olmaz's article in the Island Examiner. All of it in $50 and $100 denominations. Oh, he just got busted. Dad's theory was that Dusty had been skimming from the profits of the gambling operation, a crime of great interest to the IRS and to the Miccosukee Native Americans who were supposed to be Dusty's business partners. Fed up with all the rotten publicity, the Miccosukees announced that they intended to sue Dusty for embezzlement and evict what was left of the Coral Queen from their tribal grounds, meaning the marina. Dusty's casino scam was scuttled for good. What goes around comes around, Mom remarked after seeing the headlines. Abby and I are finally starting to believe it. A tropical storm blew through the Keys on the Saturday before Labor Day. We were all hanging around the house waiting for the rain to quit when the mail arrived. Mixed up in the usual heap of bills and catalogs was a funny postcard. The picture side showed a scarlet macaw posed on a mossy branch in a beautiful rainforest. The bird was winking and holding an ancient gold coin in its great curved beak. The message was addressed in a scraggly, thin scrawl to the unbelievable Underwoods. Dear Payne, Donna, and my two favorite champs. This is the first postcard I ever wrote, so you should feel honored. I'm attaching 29,000 pesos in stamps just to make sure it gets all the way to Florida. If it doesn't, you can blame the shrimper who was supposed to mail it for me when he got to port. Obviously, I'm still alive, which Always sunny news from my point of view. Even better, I got a red-hot lead on the whereabouts of the Amanda Rose. With a touch of luck, she and I may be homeward bound by the time you receive this card. On the other hand, I could also be dead, which would seriously mess up my retirement plans. But don't bet against the family karma. Love to all, especially Abby and Noah. It was signed, Pop. We passed the postcard around, then Abby took it to her bedroom and taped it on the mirror. She put on her emerald earrings and announced that she wasn't ever taking them off again, even for school. Later that afternoon, the sky cleared, the wind died, and the seas slicked off. So how about it? I asked my father. Yeah, let's go. We launched at a motel ramp on the ocean side of the island. Mom at ocean side of the island. What is that supposed to mean? Are there parts of this island that aren't surrounded by water? Okay. Mom, Abby, and I pushed together to slide the bonefish skiff off the trailer since Dad's hands were still tender from the fractured bones. The cast had been removed a week earlier, but the doctor had warned him to take it easy. You could see that he was in pain. After unloading the cooler and fishing rods, we piled on and headed offshore. The little boat was cramped with all four of us on board, but it was fun having Mom there. The ocean was like a mirror, which made it hard to see the bottom, even with polarized sunglasses. Dad used a GPS to locate the spot, which we had all to ourselves. In less than 2 hours, we caught 36 snappers. I'm guessing snappers are unbelievably common down in the Keys. Most of them are small, but we kept 4 decent ones for dinner. What should we name this place? Abby asked. How about Dusty's Hole? I suggested. Mom and Dad laughed in approval. That is excellent, Abby agreed. I peered over the side of the skiff and squinted against the afternoon glare. I could make out a dark, fractured outline on the bottom, the blackened hulk in 3 large sections. It was none other than the Coral Queen, dearly departed. The salvage boat was supposed to have it hauled up to the Miami River and loaded on a garbage barge. Barely 3 miles into the journey, the wreck had broken up during a thundersquall and gone down in 22 feet of water. Already, herds of hungry fish had made it their new favorite restaurant. Dusty's Hole. It's poetry, Dad said. More like poetic justice, said Mom. The morning weather report had spooked everybody else off the ocean, and, except the lighthouse, the horizon remained completely empty. There wasn't another boat in sight. I lifted Grandpa Bobby's coin from my chest and turned it back and forth in my hand, the gold just catching the sunlight. Where would he be coming from? Which direction? I asked my father. Your grandpa? Probably from the southwest. He made a sweeping gesture. Out that way, somewhere. How long will it take for him to get here? Abby said. All depends, Dad answered quietly. Mom said, hey, I got an idea, but we'll need to hurry. And it was a good idea, too. We reeled in our lines and stowed the rods. I pulled up the anchor while Dad started the engine, and Abby dug the camera out of her backpack. The sky was already turning rosy as we raced towards the west side of the islands, where we'd have the best view. Mom's sunglasses blew off under the Indian Key Bridge, but she told Dad to keep going. We didn't have much time. The bay was even smoother than the ocean. It looked like pale blue silk. We stopped at Bowlegs Cut, drifting out through the markers and on a hard falling tide. Frigate birds soared overhead, and a pod of dolphins rolled past us, herding mullet. In the distance, somewhere beyond the Gulf of Mexico, the sun was dropping through a coppery and cloudless heaven. None of us dared to say a word. Everything seemed so crystal clear and perfect. Dad edged closer to Mom, and she leaned against his shoulder. Abby was kneeling in the bow, aiming her camera as the last molten slice of light dripped out of sight. I sat there, dangling my feet in the ripples, watching the day fade away. I was hoping that wherever he might be, Grandpa Bobby was enjoying the exact same sunset. When the flash of green came, it lasted only for a magical flick of time, so brief and brilliant and beautiful, I was afraid that I had imagined it. But then I heard my dad say, "How amazing was that?" So excited, he sounded just like a kid. All right, that is the end of Flush. I love this book. I've reread it so many times, and I hope that you guys had fun reading it with me. I'll see you guys around.